It is the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective abodes. Hope y'all had a great weekend. I did. Wade, how about you?
Man, great weekend. Glad to be back in the saddle, though. A lot to get into, even though there's not a lot of games per se to be played at the moment.
That's a great characterization of things right now, as you'll see here in a few minutes. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about, man. We are going to visit in the next hour with AJ Good of Exports Net out of Lawrenceburg, because we had a development last week that we were finally able to get nailed down over the weekend. And we think AJ can kind of help shed some light on the ramifications of former Summertown two-sport standout Grayson Burleson transferring from one end of Lawrence County to the other. He will play baseball and basketball at Loretto his senior season. And if you got any familiarity with high school sports in Middle Tennessee, you realize this is significant. I mean, am I right, Wade?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we just talked last week about a student athlete that transferred and won 3 different state championships at 3 different schools. The portal was open in Lawrence County, it looks like, and that's a big shakeup for a variety of reasons that we'll tap into.
Absolutely, and we will tap into that with AJ Good in the second hour. In the next segment, we will tap into VALAIR SHABILLA, because when last we left you on Friday, we were discussing the Nashville Soccer Club and their trip to DC United this weekend, and that being a game that they really needed to win. Well, as we will reference in the rundown here shortly, they did not. So, not good for the boys in blue, but want to get some thoughts from VALAIR on just how not good that was. Also, figured as long as we had soccer talk in the next segment, we could talk a little bit about the finals of the Copa Americas. Not all of the action was on the field.
Yeah, how about that? You know, we talked about on Friday's show the brouhaha between Uruguay and Colombia, and then a lot of Colombia fans, probably some Argentina fans, they were going to great lengths to try and get into Hard Rock Stadium last night.
The Argentina fans had hold our drinks. So yeah, again, a lot to talk about with our guests, AJ Good in the next hour and VALAIR SHABILLA in the next segment. We'll also be talking a little Braves, a little Astros, a little Major League Baseball as they head into the All-Star break. Fisk University was busy right after we got off the air, Wade, as so often is the case. Named a couple of coaches, or announced a couple of coaches, and we will talk a little bit more about that later in the show as well. And there's a little deal going on out in Dallas over the next few days that we probably should talk about. The hashtag is SECMD24. Doesn't ring like SECMD23 did last year here in Nashville, but SEC Football Media Days kicked off today out in Dallas. We'll talk a little bit about that in the second hour as well. So yeah, a lot to get to.
Yeah, like you said, we're kind of hurting for games. This is that part of the year where, you know, when the All-Star break comes up, this is the reason why, and this is what was jacked up last week. They had the ESPYs, they snuck it in on us. Because this is when ESPN needs to be popping the ESPYs in. Everybo's just desperate.
It is this Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah, it usually is. So they snuck it in a couple of days. I don't know what was going on there, but there's a lot to get into, even though we're kind of hurting for actual sporting events at the moment.
Absolutely. I wonder if ESPN and Major League Baseball kind of got out of whack there a little bit, because yeah, like you said, that's typically the Wednesday night of the All-Star week, and how that got early or how the All-Star game got late, not sure, but interesting stuff for sure. But yeah, we still have 2 hours and then some probably worth of stuff to discuss as we take you through sports topics of local, regional, and national interest. So, let's go ahead and get started. Let's dive in with, well, this weekend's results.
This is the Rundown.
Here we go, folks. Today's rundown brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County. So give them a call today at 931-388-5831, or you can visit their website at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Major League Baseball results from Friday. The Houston Astros opened their series with the Rangers picking up a 6-2 victory at Minute Maid Park. The Braves also scored 6 runs in a 6-1 victory over San Diego out on the West Coast. On Saturday, how the turns table. Texas 2, Astros 1, Padres 4, Braves nothing. Sunday's series finales before the All-Star break. Texas doubles up Houston 4-2. Braves double up San Diego 6-3. At First Horizon Park over the weekend, the Sounds finish out that series against the Iowa Cubs, taking 2 of 3 with a 5-2 victory on Friday. It's 2-1 when I left, by the way, so maybe I was the good luck charm in my departure. Cubs 4, Sounds 3 on Margaritaville night. Wade, did you get a hat?
Did not get to make it out there. Plans changed on us, and no hat, no game. And no win for the Sounds, it looks like.
No win for the Sounds, but they made up for it on Sunday with a 3-2 victory on getaway day. So, Sounds took, I think, 5 of 6 in that series. Nice job.
Good job by them. Good work on Friday and Sunday for sure, and a lot of low-scoring games, close ball games over the weekend. WNBA scores from Friday. Indiana defeating Phoenix 95-86. The Aces took care of the Dream 84-70, and it was Seattle all over Minnesota 91-63. That took us into Saturday, where the Liberty defeated the Sky 81-67. Sparks on top of the Wings 87-81. 4 games on the docket yesterday. Sunday action saw Connecticut defeating Phoenix 96-69. It was the Aces taking care of the Mystics 89-77. Indiana hangs on for an 81-74 win versus Minnesota, and Seattle takes care of Atlanta 81-70. As we touched on earlier, DC United defeated Nashville 2-1 in MLS action on Saturday night, and more on this one later as well. But the Outlaws defeat the Cats late at the buzzer, in fact, practically, as the Outlaws 35, the Cats 32. That was AFL, was it semifinal action? Is that fair to say?
Action.
Yeah, so
yes.
Semifinal action sees the Cats fall by 3. Once again, your final was 35-32. And as we have mentioned, the schedule is completely barren today. Home Run Derby is about the only big option you got for viewing tonight. And so that will conclude a blank schedule, and that will conclude today's rundown.
Your top story today brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch items, which are available until 6 o'clock daily. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And when Wade said we would get to more on the Cats later, well, it's later. Billings hit a 39-yard field goal as time expired to push themselves. Bailey Giffen in particular hit the field goal to give the host Outlaws a 35-32 win in the Arena Football League semifinals over the Nashville Cats. Tough night, obviously, for Nashville. Got up 7-0 early, but were tied 14-14 at the half and had to score to tie it. Trailed late 32-26, got a late touchdown from Randy Hippard, and then a defensive holding penalty kind of set up the game-winning field goal for Billings. So a tough miscue right there at the end for the visiting Cats in a tough loss. Again, Billings led 32-25. Hippard dives in from a yard out with less than a minute remaining after throwing for 3 touchdowns earlier. So again, this veteran quarterback who Dean Kokinos, sung his praises when we had him on last Monday following their win down at Orlando. He really got it done for him. 3 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing, and had them in position to, I guess, go into overtime before, like I said, a defensive holding penalty gave Billings the ball at midfield with 3 seconds to go, and that was all Bailey Giffen needed to finish this one off. Sends Billings into Arena Bowl 33 this weekend over in East Rutherford, New Jersey, against pretty much the host, Albany Firebirds. So,
yeah, tough go of it for Nashville, right there on the cusp of getting to the Arena Bowl, and unfortunate end. Got to feel kind of positive, though, right? I mean, you go in and you beat Billings once, and you have them right there on the ropes at the end, deep in the postseason, and kind of as sometimes we see it play out, regardless of what level of football it is. It's a close game. It comes down to just 1 or 2 key plays, and Billings drills the late field goal after the penalty, and Nashville comes up just shy. Tough way to end what was a really fun season for the Cats as they kind of launch this new iteration back here in Nashville.
Yeah, it is a tough way to end. Obviously, when you pretty much end it on a defensive penalty like that, I mean, that's kind of a tough one to swallow there. And, for everything that this team and this league went through this year, to wind up in the league semifinals, got to be, like you said, a good thing for this franchise in its first year back. And, does Hippard come back? What do they do at quarterback if he doesn't? Obviously, they've got some questions to answer, both from a personnel standpoint and from a league standpoint. How stable is the Arena Football League?
Yeah, I mean, that was my immediate question, is before we even get to what does Nashville do to improve as far as next season goes, you got to wonder, is there a league next year? And if so, is Nashville involved? Presumably they are. Hopefully they are. But those are the details that you kind of got to sort out first. It seems like things did smooth out as the season went along for the AFL. You hope that continues. And then if it does continue, you hope that Nashville is in prime position to kind of make another run because, they really kind of turned some heads first with that road win, and then again getting deep into the playoffs and coming up just shy. I think they would potentially be a team that you'd really keep your eyes on for next year.
Absolutely. You feel like they've got some talent, and again, kind of announced their presence with authority when they went out to Billings to close the regular season and got that huge victory. Then went down to a pretty good Orlando team and knocked them out in the opening round of the playoffs. So playing your best ball at the end. And again, as Dean Kokino said, doesn't hurt when you've got the best quarterback in the league. So I would imagine the first priority is trying to make sure that he is back for 2025, or, coming up with a reasonable facsimile thereof in the event that it's not Randy Hippard. But again, 16 touchdown passes in 3 games. That's, even for arena ball, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, epic numbers from him on a short run there. And you wonder, if this coming up just shy, so to speak, if that maybe doesn't convince him or woo him, maybe to come back for another full season if he comes back to Nashville or otherwise, because it seems like they really, really meshed well together down the stretch. And so if you can bring that guy back, you're certainly in a good position to go forward.
They've got a lot to build on regardless. I mean, even if he, for whatever reason, isn't back, they had some success. And while he was a key part of it, they've, you feel like they've got some things to build around that would make them attractive for a lot of folks. And again, everybody wants to be in Nashville, right?
Yeah. The free agent appeal is presumably a little better, than middle of Kansas or Billings, Montana for most folks. So that
one would
presumably
think
would be better for Nashville, right?
Yeah, so certainly something to keep an eye on as we head into the arena football offseason a week early. Again, Billings and Albany will play in Arena Bowl 33 over in East Rutherford next Saturday. I believe that is I'm sorry, it's Friday. It's Friday, and the game begins at 4:30 our time. 3:30 in Billings, 5:30 in East Rutherford. So check that out. I would assume that it'll be on CBS Sports Network since the semifinals were. So, but check your local listings. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, let's chat with VALAIR SHABILLA about hashtag everyone in. Stay tuned after the break.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another estate auction in White House, Tennessee on Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Join Bluegrass as they sell the Judy Matthews Honeycutt Estate, conveniently located in the scenic Orchard Park subdivision. This beautiful estate includes both real estate and personal property, so everything must go. Everything will be sold on-site and in person, and a 10% buyer's premium is added to the final bid. So bid with confidence with Bluegrass Auction Associates, committed to excellence.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our homes this afternoon. And we are joined now by Broadway Sports Media's VALAIR SHABILLA, talking a little footy as the Nashville Soccer Club struggled once again on the road, falling 2-1 at DC United this weekend in a outcome that when you look at the MLS standings, did not necessarily look predictable, but the Nashville Soccer Club has been nothing if not unpredictable this year. So, Belair, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you guys. Thanks for having me again.
No, thank you, man. We always enjoy having you on and getting, well, I enjoy having you on and getting schooled up on soccer. Wade is miles ahead of me on this, so he probably doesn't necessarily need the tutorial. But you know, again, Wade with his knowledge said that this would be a really tough loss to swallow if it were to take place. Well, it did. Walk us through what happened over the weekend with NSC.
Yeah, I think looking at what Nashville SC is able to produce, looking at uh, if you look at the 4 games, right, the 4 losses they've had consecutively, you look at the first 3 games of that, and while they're not excuses, I don't like that word, but you can find an explanation on why they lost. They played the best team in the league. They played the second best team in the league, and then they played Portland, who are a really good team and are scoring goals and the best attack or one of the best attacks in the league. This one is hard to explain because when you're looking at DC United, a team dead last in the Eastern Conference, and now MLS is a parity league, of course. So there, all these teams are somewhat equal in quality. That said, DC United is dead last in the East for a reason. They haven't been able to keep a clean sheet in now 18 matches, I believe. That's because they are not very good defensively. I know I'm breaking some news here. This is just kind of looking at what the data show us, right?
Right.
The other part of it is that DC United is a pretty good offensive team. We've seen that over and over. They have Benteke, who is a world star, really played in the Premier League and now plays for DC, and they have some other weapons around him, younger players. So they're not necessarily a terrible team, but they are also dead last. And again, there's a reason for that. So from my understanding, the way I look at this game is that Nashville SC just didn't play up to par. And specifically, even more specifically, there was 5 minutes. That's all it took. The first half kind of went back and forth. They were able to keep DC at bay. The second half started, and Nashville SC just came out of the bench, came out of the locker room, just not looking as good or as organized or as sharp as they need to be. And in 5 minutes, DC scored 2 goals, and that was it. Game over. Nashville SC hasn't been able to really do much with the ball in attack. It's been a constant problem this season, last season, season before that. Their best qualities are not when they have most of the ball. Is their best qualities show up when the opponent has most of the ball. That said, they had enough time to maybe tie the game or even go on to win it, and they just weren't able to create many chances. And when you create only 2 or 3 definitive chances a game and you only finish one of them, then you really aren't – your numbers are low, right? So you need to create more chances to score more goals, and they just weren't able to create many chances.
And I'm curious, Valair, is Saturday's result, it was not up to par. Is that a sign of just a team that's just had a one-off bad performance, or was there something more that you maybe can attribute that to? Because it did seem like a very uncharacteristic lapse, especially in that second half at times from NSC.
I think it's a little bit of a team ready for their new coach, honestly. They announced BJ Callahan coming in, and he'll start taking over the team next week after these 2 more MLS games. And I'm not questioning anybody's professionalism or anything like that. I think the players want to win, but I think they are human beings as well. And if you look at the fans and the fans' reactions, it's pretty similar to the players of that. Well, it's a new era. We know the new era is going to start. We know who's leading the new era, and we're just excited for that part. These games right now, while they are important, they aren't necessarily top of mind right now. And again, I think the players were out there doing their best. I don't think anybody was subpar in their efforts. However, I do think, like I said, they are humans, and they were able to, these things kind of are hard to control. And I think when you have a new coach coming in, you try to impress them. And maybe there's a little bit more of that, of players trying to impress, or players trying to do a little bit more try too hard at things that maybe they aren't the best at necessarily. So it's not. It's hard for me to call it a one-off, but it's not Nashville's DNA to give up quick succession goals, even at their worst. But now it happened 2 games in a row. So I think what I'm saying is on Wednesday night, we're going to know whether or not this is a systemic problem or something that'll stick with Nashville or something that they can shake off and move forward.
Well, that's what I was.
It's interesting, Valair, that you say that maybe part of this is from trying to impress the new coach, BJ Callahan, because I can't imagine he's impressed.
He's not. I don't think so. I think there are some players, and I think that there are some maybe players who have been in Nashville, who have started for Nashville, that BJ Callahan doesn't want, or with later come to the conclusion that he doesn't want, right? And I think those players, their job starts right now to prove that they are worthy of that spot, right? I mean, you talk about the midfield. There's been a constant rotation of Sean Davis, Todd Reinunga, Drew Yearwood is a player they signed this year, and then Anibal Godoy, who's injured right at the moment. But there seems to be a clear issue in midfield. BJ Callahan plays in a system where generally there are at least 2 midfielders, sometimes 3 midfielders. So if we're going with that assumption, there are spots to be taken there. However, those spots need to be earned because it's a brand new coach who plays a brand new system, and the player who understands the system the quickest and is able to perform will get that spot. At the same time, Mike Jacobs, Nashville SC GM, has come out publicly and said multiple times, this is the start of Nashville 2.0. So when you're thinking of we're not going to call it a restart necessarily, but if it's a new phase, a new era for Nashville SC, then that does require new players. And if new players come in, guess what? The old players leave, right? So that's kind of where it's at. So the players will need to prove that they are not the ones to go somewhere else, to be traded or to be sold internationally, so they can fit into this new system that BJ Callahan will supposedly play.
And with that being said, who maybe stands to, in your mind, who's primed for a breakout under a new coaching regime with BJ Callahan, or maybe on the other side, who's primed to maybe not fit so well? Because we're talking about 2 different play styles, it seems like, from the previous coaching staff to now BJ coming in.
Yeah, I think somebody like Drew Yearwood, who we've seen a lot this year, he's played a lot of minutes. He came in this year for Nashville SC. I still think we haven't seen the best of him. I think BJ Callahan, when you look at his time with Philadelphia and with the USMNT, there's a lot of sort of midfield. There's a lot of focus on midfielders and what they can do to provide those balls forward, but also be a defensive unit. And I think somebody like Drew Yearwood might benefit from a system change that will kind of get him in his best position. He comes from the Red Bull Academy. While I don't think PJ Callahan necessarily plays, not the Red Bull Academy. He played for Red Bulls before Nashville. While I don't think BJ Callahan necessarily plays like the Red Bulls, there are some similarities in the press and the counter press. And we've seen Drew Yearwood already do these things with this current system. So I think for him, I think he can be one of those players who thrives. And I look at the wingers, I look at Tyler Boyd, I look at Jacob Schaffelberg. Wingers are very important when it comes to these teams. You look at even the USMNT and Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, or even if you look what Schaffelberg has been doing with the Canadian national team under Jesse Marsh, who's another Red Bulls guy, right? So I think when you see those wingers kind of thriving and how important of a job they'll make, I think those 2 will be kind of the spotlight will be on them, and I think they'll get enough minutes to kind of showcase what they have. Alternatively, I think maybe some of the I don't want to be harsh here, but maybe some of the old guard. I'm looking at mainstays, whether it's Dan Lovitz or Alex Muyl. These are the players who've been with Nashville since day one, really, and who have produced a lot of good moments for Nashville. But maybe BJ comes in and wants something different from those positions. He's going to come in with a fresh look, something that even Gary Smith didn't have the opportunity to, because he came from the USL team to the MLS team, right? So this is going to be a fresh slate for everyone, and everybody will have to prove themselves. So when I look at players maybe around that 30, 31 years of age who have performed for Nashville SC in the past, but maybe aren't the highest level when it comes to their position, I think maybe they will be they'll have to work harder for their position. Let's just say that.
VALAIR SHABILLA of Broadway Sports Media joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we talk a little NSC. This loss to DC United, representing the fourth straight, last three of which were on the road following a 2-1 loss to Miami here at Geodis Park. Next, they go back on the field Wednesday night at Geodis against Orlando as they try to kind of snap out of this in the next to last of a 5-game string before BJ Callahan takes over. VALAIR, what are your expectations given what we've seen here over the last few games as you go into Wednesday's matchup?
I think Wednesday is going to be interesting to see Nashville SC kind of bounce back. A lot of these games have been away from home, except the Miami one, of course. I think at home they played better. It's common. MLS teams at home are always much better than away from home. So I think the players want to prove something. As inconsistent this team has been, I don't think this is a team that goes out and loses 4 games in a row, or 5 games in a row. I think this is a team that has a fight in it still. I think a lot of these players have something to prove still. And I think Rumba Muntali, the interim head coach, also has something to prove here. So I think at home it's a good opportunity. Now, Orlando has been much better recently in the last 2 months or so. So it's not going to be easy by any means. But I think at home it's going to be easier to perform, and it's going to be easier to put on a better performance. I think if you can grab at least 3 points from these 2 matches coming up, maybe even get 2 draws at 1 point each, you're probably not in the worst case scenario. Even if you lose one and win one, you're pretty good. But I think these 2 games really, when you look at the playoffs line, and a lot of teams in MLS make the playoffs. I think I've talked about this on this show before, but 9 teams make the playoffs, which is a lot for 15-team conference. You really just need to be above that 8th place to ensure that you don't have that play-in game. 8th and 9th play that play-in game. And if you can avoid that and just go straight into the playoffs from 7th place, I think you'll be in a pretty good spot, considering you let go of your coach and all these changes that are happening, right? So I think the expectation here is to maybe go out and put on a good performance, and the results will kind of come as you put on more and more good performances. After that, BJ Callahan takes over. Leagues Cup starts, which is the competition Nashville made the final of in the first edition last year. That one is open, right? I mean, BJ Callahan has we're going to see what it looks like to be Nashville SC under BJ Callahan for the first time. So that, I think we still don't know what that looks like. But for these 2 games, focus on performances and the results will come.
VALAIR, with them going into Leagues Cup play, is that kind of a little bit of a mulligan for BJ Callahan and this team? I mean, does that kind of give them an opportunity to maybe experiment a little bit more because they're not in MLS play, and then maybe when they return from whatever they get out of the Leagues Cup, they've got a better feel for what they've got and what they're trying to do?
Absolutely. I think you're spot on there in terms of giving BJ Callahan at least 2 games to implement his ideas. He gets about, I want to say, 9 days or 10 days with the team before he plays the first game. So there's a little bit of a practice period, a little bit of a training break there. Then he gets his first game against Mazatlan, not necessarily the powerhouses of Mexican football, really. It's one of the lower teams. And then they play the New England Revolution away from home, who, their form has been better recently, but still aren't a Columbus Crew or Cincinnati or any of those better teams in the Eastern Conference. So I think it's winnable. And as we saw last time, I mean, 1 win out of 2 will get you at least guaranteed a 3rd game. The more games BJ Callahan can have with this team away from MLS, I think the better we'll get once they get back from MLS, right? So I think you'll never hear a team say we're not going to win the title. Of course, they want to win the championship. Of course, they want to go for it. But realistically, the expectation is if we can get out of the League's Cup, knowing what our players want, knowing what the coach wants from the players, and being able to implement that, then I think that'll be a very successful cup run for Nashville SC.
Valair, I got to ask you, switching gears real quick, go international here. The Euros wrapped up yesterday. Can you put into words how impressive Spain was? And can you also put into words how crazy it was watching Yamal for Spain ball out with some of the best in the world? He was 16 when the tournament began. He turned 17 like 2 days ago. And he was out there in the final of the Euro just putting on a clinic. And I'm just curious your thoughts on the overall tournament from Europe.
I think if anybody was bathed by Messi when they were a baby, they would have the same performance. That's exactly what happened to Lamine Yamal. In all honesty, no, it's unprecedented. I mean, you're looking at a 16-year-old who was the youngest ever player to play in the Euros, the youngest ever player to register an assist in the Euros, and the youngest ever player to score in the Euros. So yeah, he's one of a kind. It's crazy because he can have 10 more years of 10 more seasons as a soccer player, as a professional soccer player, and he will only be 26 years old. So I saw a stat that said Lamine Yamal was 12 when COVID hit. So that's how young this guy is. But he's playing for Spain. He's starting for Spain. He's playing for Barcelona, one of the best teams in the world. It's incredible to see a young player like that. At the same time, the tournament as a whole, I think, was kind of a letdown from the bigger teams. You know, when you look at England or France, I don't think they ever really played to their best, especially France. Germany and Spain were really the two better teams, and Spain was hands down the best team from the beginning of the tournament to the end of it. So I think they're deserved winners. But when you look at some of the bigger teams, I think it was a little disappointing. That was kind of they made up for that when you look at the smaller nations who were able to make a run, whether it was Turkey or Georgia or even Albania, who put out really good fights. And that was the more exciting part for me than, the France not being able to score an open play goal, even though they have the best players in the world.
Yeah, a lot of fans were tuning in. They see Georgia beating up on some of the best teams in the world, and they had to adjust their screens. They thought it was the Bulldogs that was out there playing. It was actually the country that was balling out, right?
Yes. Of course, the state of Georgia has an incredible soccer team. You'll never believe it.
And as long as we're talking international, let's keep it international. But here in the States, pretty crazy scene down in Miami yesterday.
Yeah, unfortunately, the organizing of this event just was not up to par. When you look at fans breaking down gates essentially to run into the stadium without tickets, the scenes are pretty horrific, honestly. And when you think about the World Cup coming to the United States in a couple of years, it makes you wonder. Now, I think it's important to note that CONMEBOL, who are the governing body of South American soccer, are the ones in charge of this tournament. This is not a U.S. soccer tournament. This is not a FIFA tournament. This is from CONMEBOL, and they are the ones in charge. And the final was just a combination of all the bad things that were happening in those tournaments, whether it's the fields, whether it was in a professionalism, as Jesse Marsh put it, the head coach of Canadian national team. He said it was unprofessional and disrespectful. Another manager came out, Bielsa came out, who is an Uruguay manager, and laid into this tournament and its organizers for his words were very tough and very hard, and of like there needs to be a better way of doing things. The Uruguay players and their families were unsafe at points after their match against Colombia because people were throwing stuff at them and essentially wanting to hurt them, where the Uruguay players themselves had to go up into the stands and fight for their families. That's crazy to me to hear happening anywhere in the world, but especially here in the United States, where we don't really have soccer hooliganism in the United States. And that's a good thing, like that. We shouldn't have that, but a lot of these countries do have a history of it. So when it happens in the United States, it's a little bit, it's a little disappointing because, we kind of thought we were kind of gonna go past that and have a tournament where people can enjoy themselves. The hope here is that maybe when the World Cup happens, it is a FIFA sanctioned tournament. It is different. It's different people running it all together, and hopefully it will not have similar results to what we saw in Copa America.
Argentina beats Colombia 1-0, despite Messi finishing the match on the sidelines, and saw a picture of his, I guess it was his right ankle, and goodness gracious, it's not pretty.
Yeah, when you look at a player, a 36-year-old who has performed and done everything he can do for his nation and for his clubs, it's not great to see him go out that way. I don't think this will be the end of him. I don't think this will be this might be the end of him with the Argentinian national team. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I can tell you a lot of Miami fans and Inter Miami coaching staff were probably watching that, and maybe they shed a tear as well, because he is definitely the heartbeat of the Argentinian national team, but he's also the heartbeat of Inter Miami, and he's what have kept them fighting even when he's not around. So I think losing him would be a major loss, not just for Miami, but for MLS as a whole. We'll wait and see what that injury looks like. But for MLS sake, I think they want him back as soon as possible, because he has brought a lot of eyes to this league. And without him, those eyes will not be on this league.
Absolutely. So it could be a situation where he maybe sits out Leagues Cup play and just tries to get ready to return for MLS.
I think that would be the smarter way to go about it. Obviously, Miami already won the Leagues Cup last year against Nashville here in Nashville. So, and I think in terms of prioritization, I don't think they're going to prioritize the Leagues Cup. I think MLS comes first. And wow, look at that.
That's not what an ankle is supposed to look like.
No.
Yeah. VALAIR SHABILLA of Broadway Sports Media joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little footy and a little ankle as well, or a big ankle maybe. VALAIR, appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon, and as always, hope to catch up with you again soon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. When we come back, we'll be talking a little baseball, so stay tuned after this break from the Lee Company Studios.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
July 15, 2021, Atlanta sends first baseman Bryce Ball to the Cubs in exchange for outfielder Jock Peterson. Helping fill the void left with Ronald Acuna's season-ending knee injury, Peterson hit .249 with 7 home runs and 22 RBIs in 64 games, but hit 3 homers and drove in 9 runs in 31 postseason at-bats to help the Braves to the World Series championship, pearls and all. Ball has yet to reach AAA and is currently in the Phillies organization. That was this day in Braves history. That was clearly a good trade for Alex Anthopoulos, one of many he made during that stretch to, again, kind of rebuild that outfield after Acuna went down against the Marlins with that knee injury. And it may take another stroke by AA here in the next bit to get the Braves over the hump, because despite taking 2 of 3 out at San Diego this weekend to get to 11 games over 500, they are still 8.5 behind the Phillies in the East. Now, again, 3 wild cards go. And there's a little bit of room for error. Given the way the Braves have performed as the NL East champion the last couple of years in the postseason, maybe that's not a status that's that big a deal. I don't know. We'll see here in the next 3 weeks. I think we'll get a pretty good read on just how much the Braves front office values another NL East championship, because the Phillies are, well, yesterday notwithstanding, they're playing like a house of fire right now. So we'll get to yesterday in just a second for Philadelphia, by the way. Max Fried made it to Texas as I think he took the place actually of Ranger Suarez on the National League roster. So that gives the Braves 4 guys going to tomorrow night's All-Star game, along with Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, and Marcell Ozuna. Of course, Sale pitched and got the win yesterday, and so he will not be throwing tomorrow night. But still, they got 4 guys out there. Not bad.
Yeah, well represented. Little ATL flavor down in Texas for the what is it? The Midsummer Classic.
The Midsummer Classic, yes, sir. Yeah, nice little contingent, for the season that they've had to this point. Because again, there's no case that could be made for a second offensive player besides Marcell Ozuna by any stretch. So, but the pitching, I think, sending 3 starters is pretty reflective of the job that they've done to this point this season. So, speaking of all-star games and the like, Gwinnett catcher Drake Baldwin had 2 batted balls over 100 miles an hour exit velo in the Futures game, including a home run that was clocked at 103.7, I believe. So when he hits them, they stay hit apparently. But he kind of launched himself onto the national minor league radar with his performance in the NL's 6-1 win Saturday over the AL in the Futures game, which is kind of a precursor to All-Star Weekend. Oh, by the way, Wade, they now play the celebrity softball game on Saturday night.
Oh, okay. So they get the festivities rolling early?
Yeah, I guess so. They play. It's become quite a weekend. They had an HBCU showcase on Friday night. They had the Futures game and the softball game on Saturday night. The draft started last night in Arlington, more in a second. And then obviously the home run derby tonight. So a lot running up to the All-Star game on Tuesday, excuse me. Wade, who do you like in the derby tonight?
I mean, the easy pick for me is going to be Garcia. You do wonder, sometimes when you go with the hometown guy, that doesn't work in your favor. I'll be keeping my eyes on him. We mentioned last week, Alonso literally sharpens his bat all season long for this event. And now you're kind of wondering, maybe does he take a step back because the Mets are actually good again? Early in the season, you're thinking this was basically the highlight of their whole year. But it feels like Alonso always saves a little something. So those would be two that I'm going to keep my eyes on tonight. But I'm going with Garcia. I just feel like he's going to try and really put on a show tonight in front of the home crowd. Bit of a homer pick, but I think he'll do well tonight. How about you?
I think Garcia is a solid pick. Gunnar Henderson had a big weekend. I think he had a couple yesterday. Ozuna hit a couple on Friday night, I think it was. But for some reason, and I don't know why, and the odds have him as the second worst guy. I'm feeling Jose Ramirez of the Guardians for some reason. I don't know what it is, but as I look at the list, he just strikes me as somebody who could light it up out there tonight. Now, again, I think Garcia is kind of the safe pick. I think from a historical standpoint, obviously you got to keep your eyes on Alonso, but I don't know. I just feel like Ramirez might be in a bust out type of mode going in here. So,
yeah, I can see that. I can see him doing well. The crazy thing is all these guys are on teams that are doing well. I was hoping there'd be that one guy that, this team has really not got much going on, and feel free to swing away, my man. But everybody's kind of got a little bit bigger priorities. So it'll be fascinating to see kind of who steps up. Ramirez, I think that's a sneaky good pick too. And you're right, 15 plus 1,500, $100 to win 1,500. That'd be a handsome payday for the Guardians bopper.
Absolutely. Your Astros dropped 2 of 3 in a series of close matchups with Texas over the weekend, but they are in remarkably good shape for where they came from. They are one back of the Mariners in the AL West going into the break.
Yes, obviously we're hoping for more, but Seattle inexplicably took the Angels much lighter than they probably should have, and they dropped a couple. So Houston kind of just lurking in the mix, and you're right. It was certainly not looking good a few weeks ago, and then they've kind of caught fire in the J months here to really get things kind of rolling. And I'll be fascinated to see what happens in the second half of the season. It kind of just feels like Seattle is just hanging on for dear life. And if Houston somehow overtakes them with whatever their team looks like, it just feels like I don't know that Seattle's going to have enough punch back, if that makes sense, in them. It just kind of feels like they're hanging on for dear life. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll be curious to see how that race in particular plays out. If not, it looks like they're, 2 or 3 games back in the wild card. That's going to be a fun wild card race as the Yankees are kind of in free fall mode. The Twins are doing okay, and the Red Sox are kind of the third wild card spot at the moment. So this will be a fun little second half of the season for sure for the boys down in Houston, I think.
No doubt. Oakland got home run derby started a day early, hitting 8 in an 18-3 win over the aforementioned Phillies.
Phillies were, already checked out, it sounds like.
Seems so. Lawrence Butler with 3 home runs. Brent Rooker and Seth Brown had a pair each, and Zach Geloff hit a grand slam off Philadelphia catcher Garrett Stubbs. Never good when you got a position player on the mound.
No, that's either really good or really bad, and
Right.
more often than not, it's usually really bad. So
Yeah. Because typically it's not the winning team that does that.
no, yeah. Usually, it's not a great situation. Castellanos did, he does what he does best, right? I mean, we have weird, wild news from Saturday, crazy news, and Castellanos goes yard.
Right in the middle of it.
And he also got his 45th and 47th RBIs, which was kind of interesting. So they got their home runs out of the way on Saturday, and then it sounds like the A's got them back in a big way on Sunday.
A's making some all-star news today, actually, and I thought it was kind of wild. Mason Miller was named to the all-star game today, to the American League roster, and I thought everybody had to be represented on the team, but he is the only athletic on the roster at this point. So I don't quite know how that works, but Mason Miller has been named to the American League roster for tomorrow night's game. Triple digit Mason Miller. So wait a minute. I'm lying. This didn't happen today. No, never mind. Scratch that. He was named earlier. I misread something. But yeah, this guy is a flamethrower from the get. And it's wild because he played D3 baseball in college, and where he came from it's pretty remarkable. But he got up to 220 right before he got out of school and picked up 10 miles of velo, was picked in the 3rd round of the 21 draft, and just kind of exploded literally onto the major league scene this year as a reliever. So we're going to get Paul Skeens to start the game, and we may get Mason Miller to end the game.
What's crazy, I did read this too. It was kind of funny, that the A's, they're the joke of the Major League Baseball world, no doubt about it. And the jokes continue because Miller finds out he's obviously making the game. Supposedly, he's not even flying privately on his own. He actually rode on the Phillies' private charter. So the internet is just having a field day with the jokes here about the poverty state of the franchise. They're one of the poors for sure. As Miller has to ride, man, you got to ride with the other team on their private plane to the All-Star game. That's tough right there.
Oh wow, Oakland cementing their status as the poors for sure.
One person did. I do like this. They said, how about this for tampering right here? because he is going to be sought after, as the A's tend to do. They tend to sell off all their good players. And his services will probably be pretty coveted close to the deadline at the end of the month here.
Recruiting trip, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talked about the Cubs pitcher last week who broke his non-throwing hand punching a wall. Well, Miami outfielder Dane Myers got tossed Saturday and responded by kicking a clubhouse door and fracturing his ankle. Guys, take care of your body.
If you don't want to play for that particular team, there's other ways to go about it. You don't have to just go out and get an injury. Although I guess that does potentially protect your paycheck. But I'm thinking they're getting a little creative here for these teams, and maybe they don't want to play these games. So this is one way to do it, right?
Well, he's not going to play for the next 6 to 8, sounds like. So that's a tough way to get out of playing, I guess. We talked about the Major League Draft. It started last night. The Vault had 4 guys go in round 1. Christian Moore at number 8, Blake Burke, Billy Amick, and Dylan Dreiling. Burke to Milwaukee, Amick to Minnesota, and Dreiling to the world champion Rangers. Vanderbilt had a pair of pitchers go as well. Carter Holton went to the Braves, and Bryce Cunningham was selected. And off the top of my head, I do not remember where he went. Don't get old. Wait a minute.
Didn't see that one.
Hang on. He went to the Yankees with the 53rd overall pick.
Pinstripes. And then just not long before we went on air, our boy from last week, Tavares Tears, gets snagged by the Padres. So
with the compensatory pick that they got for Blake Snell signing with the Giants. So
make a little magic happen there.
Tavares went. Drew Beam went early today as well. I think Grayson Carter from Vanderbilt has gone today as well. So the draft is being good to local guys. Oh, and congratulations to former Station Camp and prior to that Beach standout Chase Burns. There's an article on MainStreetPreps.com. Burns was the number 2 overall pick last night out of Wake Forest after transferring over there from Tennessee. So again, a lot of local flavor in this draft. Rounds 3 through 10 are scheduled for today. The final 10 rounds will take place tomorrow. So we will probably hear some more local names. AJ Causey went as well for UT. So we will try to recap all of that once it's not actually going on in the middle of the show. So that's going to do it for hour number 1 here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll talk a little American football, Southeastern Conference style. Stay tuned after the break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Maurice Patton, that's Wade Neely, and this is hour 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. We are not coming to you from Dallas, site of the Southeastern Conference Football Media Days that kicked off this morning with Commissioner Greg Sankey at the podium. And he gave a nice little presentation to get things started. And the one comment that he made that really stuck with me was the Southeastern Conference, where the name still means something.
It doesn't sound like it's for sale right now.
Well, it doesn't sound like it's for sale, and it sounds geographically accurate. So, which, I mean, I don't guess the Big Ten the ACC, I guess, kind of denotes a little something geographically that SMU, Stanford, and Cal don't necessarily indicate. So, I mean, I just kind of thought it was a little pithy, I guess, that Sankey kind of worked that in. LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt were the teams that were or will be visible at the Omni Dallas today, given their spiels. So Brian Kelly, Lane Kiffin, Shane Beamer, and Clark Lee on the hot seats out there today. And none of them cracked the top 4 in the 24/7 Sports preseason SEC poll, which has Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss is tied for 3rd. So, yeah. Lane Kiffin's group got some expectations, and I guess given their activity in the transfer portal and with NIL, it makes sense that they would.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kiffin, just wrapping up his remarks, he's on the set of SEC Network right now, and that's the main thing that they just flashed across the screen is they are the number 1 team in the portal, and even make the case that Lane Kiffin is the portal king. Now, they've certainly lost some, guys like Judkins going up to Ohio State. I mean, that's a big loss for Ole Miss, but the expectations are there from what they do return and what they've brought in. So that will be fascinating to me this year, is seeing Ole Miss deal with a pretty high level of expectations for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of been emerging. They've not necessarily been the team that has had the bullseye on their back under Lane Kiffin to this point. That will change this time around, especially, with the situation at Alabama, with Kalen DeBoer, a new coach, that kind of thing. They've got some expectations this time around, and they've got some expectations with some guys that, like you said, haven't necessarily done it in Oxford.
Yeah, and that is always the interesting thing, right? And we saw Arkansas basketball flame out in spectacular fashion this year, but teams have had success kind of just recruiting. Michigan football has done a great job of recruiting in the portal very strategically, but we haven't really seen a school go all in on the portal to the extent it feels like that Ole Miss has. And they've got a fun team. I mean, Jackson Dart is going to be electric. He's potentially one of your guys that you're talking about, one of the top QBs in the SEC for sure, which automatically puts you in the conversation for one of the top QBs in the country. So it will be Ole Miss, and I'm looking at their schedule in Phil Steele's preseason preview here. Tough games immediately, notwithstanding MTSU, of course, in week 2. But they got at LSU on October 12th. They pick up Oklahoma, and then they got Georgia at home on November 9th. By and large, their schedule, considering the new teams, they don't have Texas on the schedule. I mean, this is a easier schedule, certainly easier than some other teams in the league have this year.
That MTSU game will be interesting early. I think Ole Miss's numbers will kind of take a toll late, but I think Derek Mason will have something schemed up defensively in particular if Middle can score anything at all. I think
That'd be the big
early.
question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that game will be interesting early. So, um, again, LSU also on hand. They graduate the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. Garrett Nussmeier seems to be the guy at quarterback this time around, and coming off of his time at Texas A&M, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with LSU this time around. Also, South Carolina having to replace a quarterback with Spencer Rattler gone, and again, it's a quarterback-driven sport, and so much of it just kind of revolves around that. And Vanderbilt got the transfer from New Mexico State, Diego Pavia. They are picked at the bottom of the 16-team Southeastern Conference in this 24/7 sports poll. Working up from there, Mississippi State at 15, Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Auburn at 10, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, LSU ranked 7th in this poll, Missouri 6th, behind Tennessee at 5. So hopefully Eli Drinkwitz will be standing on business yet again. We'll see how that goes. But,
yeah, and the bad part, Mo, for Vanderbilt, the bad part about expanding and adding 2 more teams to the SEC, we don't talk about Vanderbilt being preseason 14. Now they're preseason 16. It just sounds worse, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think they play both Texas and Oklahoma, don't they?
They got Texas at home for sure, and Vanderbilt does not. So they have at Missouri. These are conference game at Missouri, home to bye week, and then home to Bama, at Kentucky. Got Texas at home on the 26th, at Auburn, and then South Carolina November 9th. They have another open date on the 16th, and then they close at LSU and then Tennessee. So they do avoid Oklahoma, but Texas at home obviously is going to be tough because, as we've joked, the Texas fans have already got the memo. They know how to get the tickets to that game. You just buy season tickets to Vanderbilt, and then you don't got to worry about paying an arm and a leg for them later because the resale on those is going to cost more than the season ticket price would. So they're hip to the game, which is good and a savvy move from the Longhorns. But yeah, this could be another tough season. I think Vanderbilt will be improved, and we talked about it, last week when Tobias Wilborn. The Titans could be improved and see a worse win-loss record. I think Vanderbilt could be improved, but we still could be talking about a team who they got Virginia Tech on the road, at home to start the season. So even their non-conference is kind of tough. They could be improved, but I don't know how many wins that will translate to this year.
And that's tough, and that's going to be a tough sell for Clark Lee and that team too, because Vanderbilt fans don't want to hear that, and
right.
I'm just not sure how much objectivity there is there along those lines. But it's tough. I mean, this is a tough league to come up in. It just got tougher, and even as you are increasing the talent level, even as you are increasing the competitive level, the fact that it's not necessarily showing up on the scoreboard, for a fan base that's really looking for something to grab a hold of, that's a tough process to go through. But, you're going to have to go through it because what's the alternative?
Yeah. And, that Clark Lee, we'll see what happens for a year or two. It seemed like, the new stadium presumably going to provide a little juice. Obviously, that probably won't translate directly to wins immediately in the big games, at least. But now you got basketball that's kind of got a new sense of life and enthusiasm on campus. So, not saying this is a huge make or break season, but man, this is a program that needs some positivity going a little more than they've had the last year or two.
Without question. We will continue to tap into what's going on out in Dallas here over the next few days from a distance. But when we come back to the Lee Company studios here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we will be joined by AJ Good of the X Sports Network. talking about a little high school athletics down in the southern end of Middle Tennessee. So stay tuned after this break.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another estate auction in White House, Tennessee on Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Join Bluegrass as they sell the Judy Matthews Honeycutt Estate, conveniently located in the scenic Orchard Park subdivision. This beautiful estate includes both real estate and personal property, so everything must go. Everything will be sold on-site and in person, and a 10% buyer's premium is added to the final bid. So bid with confidence with Bluegrass Auction Associates, committed to excellence.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
We continue with the Monday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton along with Wade Neely, and we are joined now by AJ Good of Exports Network, also a correspondent for the Lawrence County Advocate, which is a Main Street Media of Tennessee partner. So, AJ, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. I might be the first guest you guys have ever had that's joining you live from Disney World, but it's good to be on the show today.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can get you out in time that the youngsters that you're there with aren't too unhappy. So
I'm just praying he's not tearing up the pizza joint across the street. He already spilled all of his snacks. So.
Oh goodness. AJ, news started to bubble up about a week or so ago regarding a move with a Summertown multi-sport athlete heading south. Well, we finally got it nailed down over the weekend. Grayson Burleson has enrolled at Loretto for his senior year. Now, that's Vanderbilt baseball commitment, Grayson Burleson, joining the defending Class 2A state champion Loretto Mustangs. But I'm telling you, I feel like this is a bigger move from a basketball standpoint.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. I mean, for both sports, it's a big boost for Loretto, like you mentioned. Going over to the baseball side, having a big arm, a guy that's going to be pitching in the SEC here in a couple years, and adding him to that staff, that young staff. I know they lost a Carter Daniel and a Clint Seymour, two guys who were big for them during that state title run. But not only do you add that arm to that pitching staff in that rotation, you add that bat, because he has a lot of pop in that bat. And he's a guy that can do it a lot. His defense is really good. He's very streaky and sneaky with the speed on the base paths. So they added something big. And just like you mentioned on the basketball side, I mean, you already got guys that can play in the Case and Bowies, the Corbin Reynolds, and the Mason Tidwells of the world. Then you add Grayson Burleson to that bunch, and this team just got pretty good.
And they were pretty good to start with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, those three I just mentioned, plus, you know, they only graduated one senior last year, and that's Glenn Seymour, and he was their lone senior. And it's been a really young team. At one point, I think 2 years ago, they only had freshmen and sophomores on that team. And last year, Glenn was their only senior. So this is a really young team. A lot of guys that got a lot of playing time. You add Grayson to that bunch. This is, I mean, you start looking at them from can they get the Murfreesboro? If they do, what are they going to do once they get there? And you certainly like their prospects.
And, you know, with a veteran coach like a Greg Tips, you know, they were supposed to go to Murfreesboro in 2020.
Yeah.
And the pandemic canceled the boys state tournament at that point. Right. They've not been able to get back to that point since. In fact, I don't think they've gotten out of the region the last 3 years, but they won 20 games last year, lost in the region semifinals. I don't know that Grayson is necessarily the piece that pushes them over the top, but he certainly adds to a very talented roster, like you said.
Yeah, they've. If I'm right, they've lost in the region 3 years in a row on a buzzer beater. At least 2 of the last 3, I know they've lost at the buzzer, and all of those games have been at home. And just like you said, Maurice, it's not a guarantee with Grayson that they're going to get the Murfreesboro. I think all 3 of us know, we've been covering high school sports for decades, that, you know, nothing's a given in high school sports. Anything can happen. I've seen it everywhere I've been. Anything could happen. But when you look at it, Grayson is a big energy guy. It's a guy that plays down low really well. He's not the best shooter. He's not the best free throw shooter, but this guy's an animal on the boards, plays really well inside. And just like I mentioned, rebounding wise, he'll get a bunch on the offensive, on the defensive end. And when he gets them on the defensive end, he's a threat to immediately take that ball down to the other end of the court and get you a quick bucket. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, in all of Southern Middle Tennessee when it comes to that.
Yeah, AJ, and I'm curious if your coach Tips. Obviously, we'll get into the baseball discussion in a moment because that's worthy of being discussed. But this is the fascinating angle, is the basketball discussion. I'm curious, in your mind, how much of Coach Tips's game plan makeup of his team suddenly has to change in the blink of an eye, as opposed to maybe what he wanted to do with the team he thought he had up until about this time last week, and now he has a brand new piece of the puzzle. Does that change at all in your mind?
A little bit, but I don't think too much. If anything, they'll probably play more up and down now, maybe play with more pace. They were starting to play with more pace last year, which was certainly helpful. What hurt them a little bit at the start of last year was Bowie had mono, and it took him, mono sucks the life out of it. So it took him about a month and a half to get into the flow of things. But if anything, Greg's a really good schemer. His X's and O's are as good as anybody in Southern Middle Tennessee. And one thing Grayson can do is maybe add a little bit more up tempo to that. Add somebody that can play down in the post with Kaysen, Bowie, and I think that's one thing that will change a little bit. I don't think schematically he's going to change much, but with someone with Grayson's talents, he's certainly going to add a few wrinkles here and there.
Other basketball angle to this, AJ, I'm curious. All 3 of us have been to Summertown's gym, and we know how close quarters it is. How early are you going to have to get to the gym the night that Loretto plays at Summertown this season to get a seat, you think?
The day before?
School lets out at 3:15, so 3:20 better be your best bet to get there. It might be. I haven't seen scalpers outside of a high school basketball game since true story, since 1994. My dad pulled me out of elementary school to go watch Jason Williams and Randy Moss go play. Yeah. My dad was a high school basketball ref when I was growing up. I got to see those guys a lot. So I got to see Randy Moss and Jason Williams. They also had another guy named Bobby Howard who played 8 years in the NFL on that team as well. and they play Beckley, who has more state championships than any other basketball team, boys or girls, in the state of West Virginia's history. That's the only time I've seen scalpers outside of a basketball arena for a high school game. That might change when Loretto goes to Summertown. That's normally about a middle, early February game.
DuPont High School, right?
Dude, you got it, DuPont High School. And you know what the crazy thing about that is, Maurice? They consolidated with East Bank High School, and that's where Jerry West went. So
wow.
If they were growing up in today's day and age, you would have had Randy Moss, Jason Williams, and Jerry West on the same team.
Oh, and Bobby Howard.
And Bobby Howard, yeah.
Let's not forget Bobby Howard.
Yeah.
As long as you've gone this way, do you ever come across Jason Williams highlights on social media and not stop and watch them? Because I don't.
I on my Twitter, I've got about 5 highlight feeds bookmarked. And I go back and watch them, and I'm like, I got to see that in person in high school.
Wow.
As a little kid, and I knew that kid was big. And his first college stop, was, at Marshall. Mm-hmm. And his coach was Billy Donovan. And when Billy Donovan left to go to Florida, Jason went with him. Now, Jason got into a lot of trouble, which is kind of the story of his life, moving off into the pro aspect of it. But I'm not kidding you. The first play of that game, DuPont wins the tip. Jason takes 2 steps across the midcourt line
and lobs it.
Throws a behind-the-back alley-oop that Randy Moss catches one-handed and slams it down. Yeah. It was unreal watching those guys back in the day.
I'm a little grudgeful, AJ. I'm just going to tell you. AJ Good of Exports.net joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. You mentioned that Loretto was starting to play with a little bit more pace last year. Case and Bowie comes down with mono, kind of slows him down. Losing Corbin Reynolds probably didn't help that situation either. He's kind of the motor for them out top, both offensively and defensively. But it just feels like, AJ, when you add a Burleson to that, if they're not the team to beat, certainly in this area, you need to tell me who is.
That's a good roster. One thing Grayson adds, and I forgot to add this earlier, is he's another ball handler. Not everyone at the high school level can handle the ball well. Corbin does an excellent job of that, and that's Corbin's job. Corbin is the point guard. He's going to move the ball around. He's not necessarily asked to score a whole lot. But you add Grayson to that, you add another ball handler. Mason Tidwell does a good job with it. Casey Bowie certainly does a good job with it. And, you look at the competition around them. Summertown does lose Grayson, but that's the only guy really from last year that they lost. They're returning the bulk of that roster, and you had Cole Campbell, who would have been their point guard last year. And, he had 2 surgeries on the lower half of his body because of golf, and he's going to go far on the golf side. But, barring any injury on the golf side, he's going to go back there next year. And they've got a lot of shooters. And every time I look at them, I swear everyone on that roster grows 3 to 4 inches. And, West Long is probably thinking the same thing. So, Mount Pleasant grew by leaps and bounds last year. You never know what you're going to have with Lewis County. They've always got talented guys. They've got guys on the football side. They've been good for several years. Some of those guys, they can beat you every now and again. You never know what that team's going to pull out. So, and that region got really tough last year, as they found out in that region semifinal game where they lost at the buzzer, where they probably could have used a Corbin Reynolds to help them out on that side of it. And then when you add the depth of a Grayson Burleson who could go get you a quick bucket, that can get those rebounds, and adding that size, I mean, when you're looking at that region specifically, that's a pretty hard team to top.
AJ, yeah, that's where I'm curious. And you kind of talked about it on the basketball side of things. Is kind of where does Summertown land? Let's switch gears just briefly and go into baseball here for a variety of reasons. The head coaching role at Summertown is one very familiar with the Burleson family. So I'm curious, let's just start with baseball. Where do you see Summertown baseball kind of trying to pick up the pieces and go from here now?
Well, they've got a lot of guys returning. If you remember, the majority of that roster last year was sophomores, juniors. They do lose that bat at the top. Grayson was their leadoff hitter, led them in just about every power number. But outside of, I think they're only losing 2 guys outside of Grayson. So the majority of that roster is returning. The bulk of that pitching staff's returning. You look at a kid like Kane Kenning. Kane Kenning had a 3 home run game, I believe, the third to last game of the season last year. And he really came on strong. And he didn't pitch much at all because he had elbow issues. But he's going to come back strong. You got a Ryder Blackwood, a Jackson Bennett. Jackson Bennett, who had arm issues of his own, didn't pitch much last year. And this is a team that made it to the sub-state last year and ran into the team that faced Loretto in the championship game. And honestly, I believe if that team wasn't standing there, they would have been in Murfreesboro as well. So you're returning the bulk of the roster, baseball-wise over there at Summertown. That team is fast. A lot of good contact hitters. They were starting to hit with some pop at the end of the year. Yeah, they're going to lose a little bit with Grayson, but in all honesty, this is a pretty loaded roster coming back.
So what you're saying is the Summertown-Loretto rivalry doesn't take a step back.
No, if anything, Maurice, it goes up about 5 notches. I might have to park at the softball field just to get there for even for the baseball games. I might have to park all the way out there. I have a feeling when they go to Loretto and that beautiful new gym, it's going to be a sellout. It's going to be people camping outside of the nest when they go back to Summertown, and it doesn't take much for those two to get up in any sport. I mean, look at. They packed the gym for volleyball. They packed the gym for JV basketball, JV volleyball. It doesn't take much for these two to get up for each other.
AJ, they could just move both basketball games to the Ralph.
They could. The last couple, as long as I've been here, I can't really remember Lawrence County being at home when Loretto and Summertown face off in basketball. So if they want to, get the schedulers together and put Lawrence County, wherever. They got to drive an hour and a half pretty much everywhere they go outside of Giles County. So I'm sure, the people over there in Lawrence County wouldn't mind a packed Ralph any night that they're not there.
I'm sure neither of them is going to give up a home game. So.
No. They would have to play both games at the Ralph. Yeah. I know that much.
Oh, absolutely, without question. AJ Good of XSportsNet joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little high school hoops and baseball and transfers and all that good stuff here in the middle of summer. But AJ, I know you got things to tend to down there at the Mouse House.
Yeah.
So we're going to let you get back to it. We appreciate you taking some time with us, and stay hydrated.
I'm going to try my best. I know it says 93 degrees outside, but it feels like 193. It's a pretty hot day. We got the Muppets on store right next door, so we're trying to do every indoor activity we can outside right now.
Well, yeah, have fun with that. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks.
It was nice chatting with you guys.
Thank you, AJ.
Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, it's the grab bag, catching up and tying up some loose ends here as we finish up the Monday show. So stay tuned after this break.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another estate auction in White House, Tennessee on Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Join Bluegrass as they sell the Judy Matthews Honeycutt Estate, conveniently located in the scenic Orchard Park subdivision. This beautiful estate includes both real estate and personal property, so everything must go. Everything will be sold on-site and in person, and a 10% buyer's premium is added to the final bid. So bid with confidence with Bluegrass Auction Associates, committed to excellence.
Sunday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. This is the grab bag. Wade, back around the Final Four, I guess it was, we were fortunate enough to visit with Fisk men's basketball coach Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson has since left the building, and The Bulldogs named his successor over the weekend. Former Whites Creek High School coach Jeremiah Crutcher has been named to that position. Nashville native, played at Hunter's Lane, has coached in and around Nashville throughout his career, including at his alma mater. Spent a season as a head freshman coach at Pearl Cone, was an assistant at Lebanon and at Battleground Academy before getting to Whites Creek a couple of years ago, leading the Cobras to the Class 2A Final Four this past season after winning district and region championships. So a guy who has had some success and is well known in Nashville, taking over the Bulldogs program.
Yeah, definitely not, the headline grabber that Kenny Anderson was, but
Right.
That doesn't always mean it's necessarily a bad move. And anytime I think you can get a guy in there who's got familiarity with the area, familiarity with the program, and familiarity with AAU, really is kind of the big selling point to me on this hire. That to me seems like a good thing. And so Fisk has kind of been, they're a real hit or miss team after covering them for the last 10 or so years. Some years they will really, really blow you away with a quality team. And then some years they kind of have a down year. And last year was kind of a middle of the road for them in many regards. They were 14-16, but they were slightly above 500 in a pretty tough GCAC NAI league. And so it doesn't seem like, I don't know what the roster situation totally looks like, but it doesn't seem like the cupboard is necessarily completely bare. So this could be a good move for Crutcher to step in and maybe establish a little success at the NAI level now.
Establish some success and do it with some local talent. Again, when you've been in Nashville as long as Jeremiah Crutcher has, you've got that, you've got those relationships, and he's going to be able to build off of those, you would think, in the recruiting game. So looking forward to seeing what he's able to put together over there with Fisk as they compete in the NAI, like you said. Also, Fisk named a track and field coach, Centennial graduate, former Middle Tennessee State standout, and former Cumberland men's and women's track coach Marty Scales has come back from a stint down at Kennesaw State down in Georgia, where he was an assistant with the Owls, to take over the Fisk track and field program. And again, this is another guy who's got some knowledge, and people know him in this area, and you would think that that's going to be something that's going to work in Fisk's favor as well.
Absolutely. And track and field is always kind of a cool sport, right? Because your team may necessarily, or your program necessarily may not have the best overall success, but all it takes is one or two really key athletes, and you can kind of set yourself up quite nicely. On the other side, maybe you don't have that one or two showstopper, borderline Olympic caliber type athlete, but you got a really good program. So that's why I always find that sport fascinating from a coaching standpoint, because there's kind of a couple different ways to go about recruiting and trying to build your program. Do you go after the key individuals, or do you kind of try a more well-rounded, I guess, if you will, kind of approach? Mm-hmm. So that's one I always enjoy kind of following, because it seems like every different coach has their own kind of methodology to it.
Absolutely. Got some tough news yesterday from the NFL world. And as soon as I saw the name, the first thing I thought was Lane College. Former Baltimore Ravens, Houston Texans receiver Jacoby Jones, who was inducted into the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association Hall of Fame for his performances at Lane and beyond, died at the age of 40 at his home in New Orleans yesterday. he had done some coaching since his playing career ended, including the Beaumont Renegades of an indoor football league. But as an NFL player, in 2012, he really put himself on the map for the Ravens. Had a 108-yard kickoff return in their Super Bowl against San Francisco, which was the longest in Super Bowl history, longest in postseason history, and also had a 50-plus yard touchdown catch in that game that Baltimore won 34-31. 290 total yards gained in Super Bowl, what is that, 47, which was the most ever in a Super Bowl. So,
man, yeah, that's what I'm not really going to remember much about his career with the Texans or the few other teams he was kind of with after the Ravens. I'm definitely going to remember him for being the ultimate trivia question, because when he had that epic Super Bowl, the very next time he touches the ball, or when he was mentioned again, boom, Lane College is mentioned. And, everybody over in West Tennessee is just extremely fired up because one of their own was shining on the biggest of stage. I'll never forget, in the famous Harbaugh Bowl, he kind of stole the show, both receiving and that epic return that kind of captivated everybody and ultimately obviously gets him the Super Bowl ring.
Houston's third-round pick in 2007 out of Lane College over in Jackson, spent 5 years with the Texans, was a first-team All-Pro returner and a Pro Bowler in 2012, his first year in Baltimore. Also spent time with the Chargers and Steelers before he retired in 2016 as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. No word on circumstances, but regardless, a tragic and untimely loss with the loss of Jacoby Jones at the age of 40 in his hometown of New Orleans. Wade, we talked a little bit about Wimbledon as we were exiting the show on Friday, and the women's singles finals were fairly wide open when you've got the number 7 and the number 31 seeds going up against each other in the finals.
Yeah, and we talked to Bill Riddle last week, and he said that the men's landscape in tennis was kind of undergoing a really competitive metamorphosis, and we didn't really touch on the fact that the women's contest has kind of been so up and down. And this was a story that you brought up a couple of weeks ago. I mean, we saw the number one or the defending champ, I should say, ousted on the very first day. So from the moment the tournament started, it was kind of wide open, right? And then we see a 3-set match on Saturday with the 31st player in the world winning one of the most iconic championships. I thought that was pretty wild to see.
Barbora Krejcikova. Sure. 6-2, 2-6, 6-4 over number 7, Yasmin Paolini, for her first Wimbledon title and her first singles title since the 2021 French Open. Guess that's why she was the number 31 seed. But, man. Now, to be fair, things kind of opened up for her a little bit. As we mentioned, the defending champion getting knocked out in the opening round. Coco Gauff, the number 2 seed, went down in the round of 16. Emma Navarro, who defeated Coco Gauff, lost to Paolini in the quarterfinals. So Wimbledon's women's singles was kind of a war of attrition to some degree, looks like.
Yeah. The men's was what we touched on with Bill Riddle, but the women's game right now is just so wide open. And it feels like, as we've seen, if you're inside the top 30, really, you got a shot to win any given tournament. And especially when you're talking about that they're only playing 3 sets, right? Mm-hmm. If you stub your toe early, I mean, yeah, you could come back from you could come back from a set down, but man, it makes it really tough. You got to play perfect tennis basically from there on out. So the women's game kind of naturally favors parity a little bit more, it seems like. And so It was a fun tournament that nobody really had a clue what was going on because there were upsets left and right from start to finish.
It's interesting that you point that out too, Wade, that the women play best of 3 and the men play best of 5, because I saw somebody on Twitter/X. I'm old, it's Twitter, but was pitching an idea of either making the men best of 3 as well or making the women best of 5, just from a, I don't know, a comparison standpoint. I don't know. I wonder how that would work. I mean, I wonder how the women would feel about a best of 5 just from what you just said. You have a little bit more room for error under those conditions than you do in a best of 3 format.
Yeah, I don't know which one of those I would prefer. If you're just giving me if I'm the sports emperor, I don't know which one of those I would prefer, because the only bad problem is the top level talent is so much better than, the top. After the top 60, it really seems like it really falls off. And over 5 sets, man, there would be a lot of snoozers, and that's a lot of extra time, kind of delaying the inevitable. I would almost kind of maybe want to see the men, but then that would just be crazy, because the men is already kind of so competitive as we've discussed. And then you factor in a little more of the parity factor by reducing it to 3 sets. That would almost be where I would lean, just because I'd rather see crazy upsets and just a lot more action, a little more time is of the essence, kind of, if you will, a little more urgency, because I would not really want to sit through some of the women's matches that would probably take way longer than they really need to.
Yeah, I mean, you wind up with 3 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. Yeah, that's not pretty. So, we mentioned the number 31 seed winning on the women's side. On the men's side, Carlos Alcaraz, not Alcatraz, no T, has kind of become the staple at Wimbledon now, winning it for the second straight year, defeating Joker for the second straight year, this time in 4 sets, 6-2, 6-2, 7-6, 7-4. No, I'm sorry. Swept him.
Yep.
I misread that. Yeah. 7-6, 7-4 in the tiebreaker. So back to back. That's solid.
What that was, Mo, that was the proverbial baton being passed yesterday. We saw we'd kind of been seeing this come on. I mean, you're talking about one of the great young players at just 21, and everybody's kind of been wondering, how good is this guy going to end up being, really? How many Grand Slams are we talking here? Because Joker's got, like 37, I think it is. And so you're wondering, does he start maybe, thinking or flirting with that number? And I didn't get to watch any of the match yesterday, unfortunately, but it just seems like that Alcaraz was just that much better. Joker's dealing with a little bit of an injury, depending on if you believe him or not. His camp certainly makes it seems like he's been kind of battling through some injuries. But if you do believe that, maybe give him a little bit of a reprieve. But if we saw Alcaraz and Joker going head-to-head, it certainly feels like it was that proverbial passing of the baton yesterday, as at 21, already got a couple of Wimbledon titles to his credit. The only one he hasn't won yet is the Australian Open, but he just won the French Open this year, so it certainly seems like we're in the era of Carlos Alcaraz, which set the tone yesterday, Mo. This was, you'll appreciate this, in the petty wars. It was Spain versus England yesterday at Wimbledon. So you had Alcaraz that goes into England and wins the title, and then just a few hours later, the Spanish soccer team defeats England for the European title over in Berlin. So not a good day to be an English supporter, because you had to watch the Spaniards kind of come in and rule your shop there for 24 hours. And Sergio won the Live Tour event too. He was kind of puffing his chest about he was part of that equation as well yesterday.
Well, walk in your trap, take over your trap, right, Wade?
Pretty much. The Royal Kingdoms kind of went at it there, so to speak.
Alcaraz's 4th major at the age of 21, as you pointed out. He now has more majors than Nadal, Djokovic, or Federer did before reaching 22. Nadal had 3, Joker and Federer 1 each. So, like you said, if that's not the baton being passed, it certainly feels like it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be just, him winning and waltzing through every tournament, as we've kind of discussed, but because the state of the game is really strong while we're going down the tennis wormhole here. But there's a couple feisty other competitors too. And so it's not just going to be a pure cakewalk. I don't know that he's going to be a straight up dominant in every single tournament like we saw Djokovic or certainly Federer or even Nadal during their respective runs. But it feels like over the long haul, he is set up to put himself, we're talking 10, 15 years from now, we might be looking back and saying he's one of the greatest to ever do it.
You said you didn't get to watch any of the men's finals. Were you tuned in for the Scottish Open?
No, but I did see a great clip in the Degenerate Gambler Hall of Fame as there was a man posted up at the Circa Sportsbook at 9:30 in the morning. He was the only person, maybe Mark can find this clip. He was the only person in the entire sports book watching anything. He's the only one in there, and he's got his 32-ounce beer, and he is just watching the Scottish Open, and he is happy as a clam. And I bet he bet on Bobby Mack because he was looking a little happy in his seat there at 9:30 in the morning, pounding some brewskis.
Well, Bobby Mack comes through for him. Robert McIntyre, the first Scot to win the Scottish Open since Colin Montgomery did so in 1999. Shot a 63 on Saturday to put himself in position, and then closed it out on Sunday, midday Sunday here, I guess. So nice victory for him.
Absolutely. And I told you, it was a rough day for England, but conversely, it was an outstanding day for Scotland. One of my good buddies, Coach Will Austin, we got to give him a shout out from UT Southern. He was as fired up. The level of pettiness to which Scotland aspires to now, they were loving life. They had the Spanish flags hanging from all the bars yesterday. They already saw Robert McIntyre win the Scottish Open, and then they got to see Spain defeat England. So Scotland didn't even come close to winning the European soccer tournament, but they certainly won it by proxy via England losing yesterday. So that was exciting to see.
They didn't win, but England didn't either, right?
Exactly. So, and England's catchphrase, is it's coming home. They still haven't won a trophy since like 1956. So everybody, it's never coming home is the other popular remix of that song because England goes bye-bye. But yeah, the Scottish fans of the world, they had the golf to get them kick-started. Maybe the guy in the sports book was from Scotland because he looked giddy at 9:30 to watch as McIntyre wins by a stroke in the Scottish Open.
Wins by a stroke over Adam Scott of England. Australia. I'm sorry. Yes, I misread that flag.
We got to protect him. Yeah, we don't want to get him catching strays by any chance.
There we go. Rory McIlroy was tied for 4th, 4 strokes back. A log jam, 4 strokes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 different guys, including Abear, who got off to a great start last week, but didn't quite hold on. Finished at 73 yesterday. Colin Morikawa was also at 266 for the tournament. So you were either tied for 4th or you were, 11th?
Yeah.
Man.
Like you said, it was a big log jam there. And this is the precursor to the Open coming up this week, which will be exciting because you're right. It was kind of a who's who amongst some of the big boppers that were playing yesterday. Thigala's been playing outstanding. Morikawa, we saw what he's done the last couple of big majors played here in the United States. Aubert, he really kind of was the one that maybe doesn't feel great about what he did. He ends up shooting 3 over yesterday. We talked about, on Friday's show that he was sitting in a nice position. And Rory, a solid showing, even though he finishes, not as high as he would have liked, or certainly won the thing, but a quality bounce back effort from Rory since we saw him speeding in the parking lot. and hopping on the private jet before the tournament was really even over.
So the Open is this weekend. What are you looking at? Who are you looking at in that one?
You know, it's kind of really too early to tell because the British Open, it kind of has snuck up on me, and I would not be surprised to see a couple of these guys like we just talked about, especially at least from the American side of things. Theegala has been playing really sharp golf. He kind of reminds me of Tony Finau a few years ago in the sense that everybody is kind of thinking, okay, he is really playing some lights out golf, but he just hasn't quite gotten over the hump for the big win. Mm-hmm. And so maybe this will be a chance for him to get in there. Morikawa seems like he's been playing well. I mentioned his success here on American soil the last couple of weeks. There's always going to be a couple guys that seemingly show up out of the woodwork. Can't discount, like DeChambeau. Presumably he's going to be back to his old tricks after we saw him winning the U.S. Open. I think it'll be a fun tournament, though. Always is. And it's always fun to have an excuse to get up early and watch a little live sporting events. I don't know that I'll be up and as giddy as the guy was in the sports book, but I certainly will be fired up with the coffee nonetheless.
Scrolling through Twitter as we are wont to do, I saw this, I guess maybe around the top of the hour. Fresno State's coach Jeff Tedford has stepped down amid health concerns, according to an article by Matt Zenitz on CBS Sports. 62-year-old Tedford, who coached his second season of his second stint with Fresno last year, took over after Kalen DeBoer left for Washington back in December of 21. And it is with sad emotions that following my recent medical checkup, it is clear that due to health concerns, my family and I have made the decision to step aside as Fresno State's head coach and allow someone else to lead the football program. Tim Skipper, assistant head coach and linebackers coach, has been announced as interim. Tedford did not coach in the New Mexico Bowl last December because of health issues. But in his 2 seasons back, Fresno State's gone 19-8. He was 45-22 in 5 total seasons at Fresno. That's interesting.
Yeah, kind of some scary news, and hopefully he kind of gets that health situation taken care of first and foremost. We can get back to the other stuff later, but it always kind of puts things in perspective. And man, when you just say his name, I really think about, man, they had some electric Cal teams, one of which got absolutely blasted by Tennessee when they came to Rocky Top. I was at that game, and they got smoked. But, I mean, you're talking like Aaron Rodgers. You're talking Marshawn Lynch. I mean, Derek Carr was in there. I mean, he had some really, really good teams at Cal and has had some great success at Fresno State. But you're right. Anytime you hear health concerns like that, especially a recurring situation, got to put that into a little more focus.
Between Cal and Fresno and an assistant role at Oregon, this guy worked with Aaron Rodgers, Kyle Bowler, David Carr, Joey Harrington, Trent Dilfer, and Achilles Smith are among his quarterbacks. Dilfer played for him at Fresno when he was an assistant there. I hear music. It's time for us to go. Yeah. And I'm frozen. Am I still frozen? Anyway, we'll be back here tomorrow at 2:00. So come back to us right here in the Lee Company Studios on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will see y'all then.